Hey folks, welcome back to the shop. Where you been? Just kidding. It's all me. I know it. It's been it's been a month and haven't had anything up, you know, and just really just been busy. But the shop is coming along. It's not finished. Will it ever be finished? Is anyone's shop ever actually finished? That's the question we need to ask ourselves. As I sit here and get very deeply philosophical, that ain't me. Anyway, the electrical is done. All of the electrical is done, including my 220 outlet and including the outlets for my dust collection, which is not set up yet. The next step is plywood on the walls. And if you have priced plywood, folks, it ain't cheap. And so, as I said before, this is a budget thing. I just have to wait until the budget's right, and then I can go and get the plywood, and putting it up ain't no big deal. Just a matter of getting it done. But I do have something that I want to get accomplished today in the shop, something that I talked about before. Do we need to address the elephant in the room? That's this thing. Mrs. Claus, otherwise known as my wife, uh, she got together with a couple of folks from the church, and they bought me a new miter saw for Christmas. This is a Wen 10-inch dual bevel, zero rear clearance sliding miter saw. I probably got that all wrong. It's a dual bevel, it is 10-inch, and it is zero rear clearance. This is the third Wen tool that I own. I haven't even used it yet. In fact, I just put the blade on it 5 minutes ago. If you would, I don't do tool reviews just because I don't have tools. But if you would like to know more about it, the only review that I have seen on a Wen sliding saw was, might have been Matt at 731 Woodworks, and he did actually a really good review on one. And it was off of that review that I chose to go ahead and get this one. Why zero rear clearance? Well, because if you're in a small shop, you know that a full footprint takes up 3 feet. This one does not, and that's why I went with this one. This is why I suggested to my wife. And she surprised me with it. It was sitting in my office at the church, and it was a Sunday after service. She led me up to there with some folks in follow, and I didn't know why. And that was because she, every so often, she pulls it off and she surprises me. Not very often, but she does. Anyway, so if you want to know more about this, how it works, how I feel about it, stuff like that, let me know. Put it down there in the box, and I ain't no professional, but I'll tell you what I like and what I don't like about it, and I'll tell you how I feel about it. If you're interested, put it down there. I'll let you know. So enough about all that. I told you all that so that I could tell you this. I had mentioned in an earlier video that I wanted to put my router in the table saw. And again, the question might be, well, why do you want to do that? Well, I have a very, I'm looking where it's at because I haven't pulled it out yet. I have a very cheap router table. I bought it at Harbor Freight. Now, that's not to knock it. It works fine. I'm semi happy with it. But again, in a small shop, it's one more thing that I have to find a place for. And I have this big gaping hole in my table saw. So if I can just put it there, sure, let's do that. I do not have a lift for it. You know, all of the videos that I have seen, people have put a router lift in. I don't have that. One, because they're too expensive. And two, the one place that you can get one for 30 bucks, I don't necessarily trust the company. So I'm just going to put it in as it would be on my router table if it was sitting on the bench. It's worked for me for 2 years. It'll work for me in the future. And I'll kind of show you what my plans are on that. It's been so long that I did a video that I actually cut up some wood and I forgot to film it. So I need to get back into this. I miss you guys. I hope you miss me. Anyway, I'll get the camera pulled around here. I'll show you what my plan is. I'll show you what I'm working with. Because like everything else, it's on a budget. I ain't buying no material to do this. So let me get you turned around here and we'll show you what the plan is. So as you can see, I have this big gaping hole here. And if you remember from the video I did about putting this back together and setting it all up, I spent a lot of time getting this particular panel as close as I could get it. And I think it's pretty good. It's definitely not impeding on any cuts. It's not changing. It's level. Okay, can we just put it that way? It's level. My initial thought was to take this out and make a one-piece panel from the end of the cast all the way over. I don't know if that's the best plan. I'm not sure if that's what I'm going to do. To be honest with you, I don't really have a plan. What I have is some scrap, and we're going to make it work. Again, I watched a couple of videos on other people doing this. I don't know if I learned anything. I mean, I did, but I kind of am drawing from 3 different ways that it was done. So that's the plan, and I'll just kind of figure it out as I go along, whether this panel stays or this panel goes. I guess it depends on what scrap. I have nothing prepared for this video, as usual. Depends on what kind of scraps I have laying around that I can use. That piece of melamine over there is what is going to make this piece. That was my old tabletop, if you remember. And so now it's going to find a new home, but that's the only kind of plan I have. We'll go from there and see what happens. Okay, so I think I have a game plan. Not 100% sure. Not even really sure if it's going to work. But that's the fun of doing this. This is a piece of pine, 1 by something material that I've cut down into 2-inch strips. This is a 2x4 that was made into something else before, and I cut it down. There's holes there. That's okay. That's not going to be a problem. What I'm going to run into is anchoring spots to anchor this thing to the saw. On this wing, I know there are 3, maybe 4 bolts that come across here, and there's 2 here on either side. And then you come all the way to here, and that's my next anchoring spot. This, I believe, is only here to keep my rails from closing in on each other. And if there's something in there, well, then that won't happen. So I think what I'm going to do, the melamine I'm working with is 3/4. And so I can put a frame here, drop it down 3/4 of an inch, attach it, and then that'll essentially lay on top of it. Yes, it'll be attached. Yes, it'll be, you know, whatever, so it doesn't come flying out. I think that's the game plan, or at least that's what I'm going to do until I find out that it doesn't work. So what I need to do is get this thing tore apart, which really sucks because I took so long making it fit right. The only game plan that I have is that when I make this frame and I drill the holes for where the screws and the bolts are going to go, I want to give myself, I'm going to elongate them, is what I'm trying to say, so that I have some adjustment. If it comes up a little bit high, I can adjust it low. If I do it right, I won't have to worry about that, but this is me we're talking about. So I'm going to go ahead and get this tore apart, if I can find out where all my tools went from whenever I put it together. And then, well, I guess we'll just start cutting the frame out and go into it. I'm going to leave this in until the last minute, because if I take this out, then there's nothing. I don't think it's going to go anywhere anyway, but I don't want to take that chance. So that's the plan. I'll go ahead and get this started. I haven't actually built a project in the shop yet. The little things I cut out on the bandsaw, I don't really count. But it's amazing to me, for not building a project in here yet, how much of a mess this place was. Moses. It was crazy. I mean, the floor, well, here's the thing. 2 cuts with a circular saw and 1 cut with a miter saw without any dust collection. And this place was a nightmare. And everything was shoved to the center so we could do insulation. And who cares, right? Who cares? But I couldn't believe how much of a mess it was. I'm going to say that's 27 inches just by glancing at it, but let's try to do better here, okay? 27 inches is what it is. So that's going to be this piece. Okay, so I'll cut this, and we'll go from there on my new saw that doesn't have dust collection. So as is typically the case in my shop, I don't use things like, you know, safety. Safety? What's that? Let's tape measure over here. Put the pencil over here too. Folks, when I tell you that I didn't really have a plan, this is not a lie. 27. Are we even long enough? Let's see here. That's where we're going. We do not want to take the line. All right, let's see what happens. First time using this bad boy. Let's just give her a test run first. going to cut through that. That's not even going down low enough. I might have to set that. Oh no, there it goes. Okay, there was a little extra push I had to do. Again, I am leaving the line. First cut with a brand new saw. You know, it could have been cherry, it could have been oak, it could have been maple, it could have been something really great. No, it's a 2x4. Anyway, how do you even use this thing? Ooh, okay. Well, let's see what that does. It's a little noisy, but hush. It's a little noisy, but other than that, it does what it's supposed to do. So what I need to do is figure out where those holes are at, drill this out. My drill press is still in pieces in a box right there, so that's great. We're gonna have to do this old school, I guess. So let me get this drilled out and figured out, and then I'll bring you in whenever I'm ready to move forward. So here's what I've learned. One, I didn't have the right size bolts, but this rail and this rail is exactly 3/4 below the top of my cast tabletop, which is perfect because that's exactly what the material is that I'm using. So what this piece is going to do is basically be a runner from side to side. Now I can't have it hang all the way over the side because I won't be able to move my fence up and down, but I can get, you know, well, on this side I can get a good 1/4 inch and probably about the same on that side. So what I'm going to do is just line these up to the top of these rails because, like I said, that's 3/4 below. I will end up putting a rail on either side here. Not sure what I'm going to do down here yet, but I'll come up with something. Just got to get a little bit of adjustment on this one to get it flush with the top of this rail. And then I know that this is 3/4. I'm good. Tighten it up. Finished. Yeah, this ain't sketchy at all. Oh well. The saw has a rip capacity of 30.5 inches. Took a wing out, but that'll be okay. I need 24.5 in one direction. I can't get this trim off because I glued it on because I thought that was cool. So what I'm going to do, that's my factory side, if I remember correctly. I'm going to cut it 25, flip it, and cut that off, and I'll probably hit nails, and it's, you know, that's fine. It's a cheap blade. I'm running a shop vac, and I can't get. Hang on, Joyce, come here a minute. Can't see nothing. Ooh, that's terrible. Turn that on. Thank you. Do you want to sit here and watch my death? Okay. Listen to this. Same circuit. Nail. Oofta. Okay. That's not my saying, by the way. I say oofta. Somebody that I watch on YouTube says it all the time, and I'm a really big fan of theirs, and so I say oofta.
Our son said oofta for a long time.
Yeah, if you're in the northern Midwest, like Minnesota, you'll know what oofta is. But if you're up there, why? It snows up there. All right.
Okay. Bye.
Thank you very little.
You're welcome.
isn't that ugly? Okay, now I get to do it all over again. If a guy had just a little bit more room. What I'm doing is I have a roller. In case you didn't see it, I got a roller set up here, which are really handy in these situations. But then you got to have room for it and room for the shop vac, room for everything. Oh boy. Well, you know what? I'm punting. I'm going to pull another 1/2 inch off of this. Sure I am. I can see that. There. Now I have a little bit less chance of hitting every single nail. Maybe every other nail. They're not pin nails, they're 16 gauge, so it's not a tragedy, but if you ain't got to hit them, why do it? Sketch factor 10. Forgot there wasn't a wing there. Started pressing down on it. So we're going to fix that problem. All right, now the rest of it's easy. I have to cut, I have to cut this the right size going this way. And that'll be a lot easier now that it's a smaller piece. So this is 27. Bringing it out over the rail is 27 3/4. That's a 3/8 on both sides. I did the math, counting my fingers and toes. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut it a little bit wide, and then that'll make it even more easy to handle, and then cut it down to the right size afterwards. It's kind of sad that this only goes to 15.5 on this side, or I'd just bring it over, but oh well. The questions then that I have are, will it fit this way? Oh, she's going to just fit. All right, yeah, we'll be good. Except I got nothing. We got that again, the cavern of death. So let's make this, what'd I say? 27 3/4. So I'm going to make it 28 1/4. And that gives me plenty of room to mess up. I'm going to move the stuff off the table so it actually can get out there. I'm going to see if I can do this without dying. Because, yeah, I mean, so that it'd be good. I just had dinner. I'd like to enjoy it. Once I get this cut and ready, then I'll shut her down for tonight, and tomorrow I'll be able to just finish this up. It won't be a big deal. So we're not looking for perfection. We're just looking for good enough here. Okay, here we go. Here's hoping we don't die. There's a problem. That table's too far away from my saw, and it's just going to drop. Oh, no doubt about it. And it weighs 14 million pounds, so that's nice. Here we go. Okay, that's a little bit better. All right. Now, you can do this if you're careful. I'm just going to back this up a little bit. We're going to turn this on. That's high. That one's high. That one's way high. Okay. Wonder why? Because it's on the rail. Did I not measure the back rail? Maybe, huh? Maybe that's what it was. Folks, you get to see me fail right on camera. Let's take a look at this. See what our dilemma here is. Oh, our dilemma is it's not the same on this side as it is on this side. Okay, here's where the problem lies. First off, I assumed. Don't ever assume, because sometimes you're wrong. I assumed that this rail and this rail were the same height or same height difference from the cast, and they're not. This one's 3/4 of an inch and that one is not. It's different. So what I'm going to have to do is take this right to the inside of this, lower this so that it rides at the same height, at the right height. And that's going to create a problem down there also because I made that to that height. And that was a drill through. I drilled through the wood and the metal at the same time. So if I take a look, I have a little bit of room I can play with. So I think what I'm going to do is I'll loosen this, drop it down till I get this the right height. Then I can do the same thing to that one. Told you folks, you get to see me fail right on the camera. I ain't had nothing here. So I'm going to get that done real quick, and then I'm going to shut it down for the night. And I'll see you in the morning. And tomorrow we'll be able to finish this up. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, solve that problem, and then we'll move on. I'll see you in the morning. How about as soon as I hit the record, the dog starts barking? I don't know if you can hear that or not. It's annoying. Anyway, new day, new morning. Here's where I'm at. Spent about an hour finding all of the pieces of the old router table because they weren't all in one box. Poor packing on my part. But I got them together. I spent the rest of the night, last night, refining this. Because if you remember, this rail is actually not the same height as the rail that I'm resting this side on. So that was a nightmare. Anyway, we got that taken care of. It's all level. It's all good. Now I have to decide where in the world I want to put this thing. So I spent a lot of boring time that you folks don't want to watch, just trying to figure out and lay out and all that type of thing. I made a template of the top of my router, but that does me no good because I can't visualize that. So I took the whole router table and set it on here and clamped it into place. No, golly, excuse me. Knowing that this is my hole where the bit's going to come up through, and I feel good about that. What I need to do, there's a whole bunch of holes all over this table. None of them mean anything to me except these four. Okay, these four are where the base of the router sits up underneath, and I don't want to mess this up because if I do, then I can't put the router there, for one thing, and two, it's not something I can fix by just kind of egging out the hole. So I have the table clamped to the table. That's not confusing at all, is it? And I'm just going to drill straight through these holes, and then that way I know that I'm spot on. So that's where we're at. Okay, now I can get rid of this. Okay, there's my holes. All right, so here's my dilemma. I don't have Forstner bits. I don't have a bit that's, I don't know, I don't have an 1 3/4 bit. So, against my best judgment, I'm going to have to use, jigsaw. And I think what I'm going to do is just kind of get it close because I have a router. And maybe well, I don't know. I was going to say I'll just get a flush trim bit and clean up around it, but you have to have something for that to ride against, and I don't know. I don't know. Okay, we'll figure it out as we go. But that's the next dilemma that I have to hit. And so I'm going to cut this out, and then it's time to start. I'm missing a screw on the base. Interesting. Not sure how that happened. I'm hoping it's in that bag of goodies over there. If not, we'll use 3. You ever drive a car that's missing 1 lug nut? I have. I've driven cars that were missing 2 lug nuts. It's fine. It's not fine. Don't do that. I'm not advocating that you drive with no lug nuts on your wheels, but I've done it. Okay, let me get this cut out, and then we'll figure out how we're going to clean it up. So how many of you, while I was saying I don't have something round that I can flush trim this, to be honest with me now, how many of you were screaming at your screen saying, hey, dum-dum, just use the table, the old router table, because it's exactly the size hole that you need? Somebody had to have been, because if not, that means that you're just as bad as me, and I think you folks are better than that. Anyway, here's what we got. I have clamped the table to the table because it does have exactly the size hole I need. I have a flush trim bit, which I've never used. I'm just going to be honest with you. I didn't do a whole lot of routering. What I did do was for putting nice molding on picture frames. I have it into my cheap $20 trim router from Harbor Freight, of course. And from what I understand, all I got to do, and I'm good. So, ain't nothing to do but to do, I guess. All right, let's see if it's actually on or not. Maybe we'll put a hand on that. Oh, good. If this goes terribly wrong, just, make sure the authorities get the information, I guess. I don't know. I am not a big fan of this router one because it's got a clear base, but that doesn't mean that you can see what you're doing. So we'll give it a shot. Sure, I will. Turn it on. Maybe. Oh, yeah. Well, a little bit right there, but not enough for me to cry. There's a lot of dust in there. I could have started a campfire. So I could have. Let me suck that out. I'm going to give it. This worked really well. I've never done this before. So I'm kind of happy with that. I told you folks 2 years ago or a year ago that I didn't know what I was doing, and you choose to watch me anyway. I can't take the blame for that. Okay? All right. I'm going to suck this out. I'm going to go back around it one more time just to make sure everything's where it's supposed to be. And then I think we're ready to mount that to this, put it in there, screw it down into place, and we can call this animal done. Pretty close to it. That's the plan anyway. Got her set into place. So I'm going to drill, I think I'm only going to use 3 screws. I think that'll be enough. Coming across here. And what's happening is the weight of this is now lifting this back end up, but once that's screwed down, that'll be fine. Something else I didn't consider, it's not a big deal, but I have to mount the switch, and the original router table had the absolute shortest ground wire on. I mean, absolutely short. I might have enough room to get it out to the edge where I can get to it. If not, I'm not afraid of a little bit of electrical tape and a shop fire. I'm just kidding. That's not how it's going to work. I think I have room that I can bring it out and mount it, but that's not a big deal. Once that's done and this is mounted, then I'm pretty much good to go. Here's this is the router fence that came with the Harbor Freight router table. And if I have complaints, but if I have a major complaint about that table as it's purchased, it's that this is a plastic fence. And I am of the thought process that it's warped. Because you would think if you're sliding a piece of wood, it would be this way. But if you're sliding a piece of wood through the router, and that's why this is on here, but it should just run smooth. And when it gets to this side, it should just continue on. But every time, and I've tried to shim it up and put this on, but it just always catches on this side. A 32nd of an inch, but it's enough to stop it. And so in my mind, that's telling me that this has some kind of a warp or a bow in it. So I'm not going to use this fence. Now you might be thinking, well, what if you want to use a fence? Good thinking. Well, guess what? My table saw, remember I said that end's sticking up because of that? My table saw has a fence. Ta-da! That I know is straight. Now I know what you're thinking. You can't run the router bit up against that, and I know you're right. You can't. One of the first YouTubers woodworkers that I started watching way back when was Down Under Woodworks. The guy is super cool. He's really, really cool. He builds a lot of really neat stuff, actually. If you've not watched him, check him out. He built a bicycle that's just next level. Okay, anyway. He has his router and his table saw, and he uses his table saw fence. What he's done, like if you're building a jig, like a spline jig or something like that, and you just put a saddle over this, and then he's built extensions that come out of that, and that way he can cut his hole in it for dust collection and stuff like that. And so that's what I'm not going to do it in this video because, to be honest with you, I'm kind of sick of working on this. And he doesn't have a video on that. I just saw it in one of his videos and I thought that's brilliant. So and he might not be the only one that did it, but he's the one that I saw. So that's what I'm going to do with this. I'm just going to build a saddle, 2 extensions, maybe 4 extensions because I want it to be straight. And that'll be my fence. When I bring this over and lock it, I know it's where I want it to be. Okay, so it is in. I did end up running screws along this front piece here because I thought, that's going to be off a lot of vibration. And I don't really want to listen to that. Down below, I was able to get the switch mounted. And to do that, all I did was loosen the ground wire. It's on an eyelet. I just turned the eyelet facing towards the switch and it gave me another inch of wire. So that's mounted. Looking up underneath, pay no attention. This used to be my worktop table, remember? That's why it's a mess. But that's all secured in. And it does the up and down thing. Now, I just threw that bit in. That's I don't know what that is, a round over bit, I think. I didn't even pay attention, I just threw it in. And that's that black insert that I was talking about. And that's uptight. That's flush to the top of the table. I'm gonna have to kind of look at this to make sure it's not sitting high in any spots. I don't think it is, but I'm gonna double check it. But for the most part, she's done. So there you go, folks. One more thing off of my list of things to do to get the shop ready. I mean, I can work in the shop the way it is, and it'll be fine. The problem is I'm going to continue to look through boxes for stuff. So the next step on the shop is get the plywood up on the walls so I can get stuff up where I can see it. This is something I've been wanting to do for a long time. If you remember in my old shop, this part of the table was up against the wall, so I didn't have that option. And I specifically put it this way for this purpose. I'm pretty happy with this. It's solid. Of course, I haven't used it yet, and I'm sure that there will be some things I'll have to tweak here and there, but it's completely flush all the way across. It's not going to affect my table saw. So I'm really excited about this. Hopefully it helped you if you are thinking about this. I could have done this in a couple of hours, to be honest with you. I started it in the evening last night. And of course, anytime you're recording something for YouTube, it takes twice as long as what it should. And I didn't have a plan when I started. If you have a plan, if you know what you're doing, then it ain't going to take no time at all. If you're using a router lift, good for you. Just, now I have this newfound affection for the flush trim bit. Do it up. But this is going to work for me for right now. And maybe someday Santa will bring me a flush or a router lift. Who knows? In the meantime, thanks for watching. I appreciate it. I'm glad to be back out in the shop doing stuff. Obviously, I'm going to have to build a miter station. I have to build something for all of that stuff over there. And so I have some things coming up in the future. I'm going to try to get back to videos every week or every other week probably. But in the meantime, I'm glad to be back, and I'm glad you guys waited on me. I really appreciate it. If you're not subscribed, hit the button. It ain't going to hurt nothing. And ring the dingle-dong bell so that whenever I finally get up off the couch and make a video, you'll know about it. In the meantime, thanks for watching. God bless. I'll see you on the next one.